Before I start adding features to my project, I want to understand something first. Where does everything actually live? Because when you open a modern React TypeScript project, especially one generated using tools like Builder, IO, or other AI website generator, you don't see just few files. You see folders everywhere, public, netlify, client, and so on and so forth. And if you don't understand the purpose of each folder, it becomes very easy to be randomly editing any files without knowing the impact it will make. So in this video, I'm going to break down my current project here in Scrabble AI, its folder structure, and understand what each part does. So first, let's go to our front end web. So this is the generated by slap initially, but due to continuous talking, prompting with our AI agent, we're able to come up with an MVP that suits our taste. So we are seeing here client server, shared, public, and other files like Vite and ts config, etc. So at a high level, this project is separated into different kinds of responsibility. So basically, this client is the front end, and the server, which is here, handles the backend related logic. Okay, our APIs. So the shared folder here contains the code that can be reused or can be used in connection between front end and back end. Here in future devs, it's gonna be contained here. The public folder contains static assets like icons and SVGs. Here, the root files that we have here, meaning this JSON, YAML, JavaScript, and TypeScript files, etc., and etc. These are mostly configuration files that control how this application runs. So first, this package.json. So this is one of the most important files inside a JavaScript project. This is named package.json. So you can think of package.json as the ID, the identity of an application. So it tells us basic information about our project. Like we use Vite in this project, like the dependencies that it needs to run so that it will function successfully. Okay, it's written in here. Like you can also see that we are using TypeScript, we are using Tailwind, etc. and etc. So this is important because instead of manually downloading all of this dependency library, npm or pnpm, we're gonna use this file to know what needs to be installed. It contains all scripts. So example, our npm run dev. Okay. So next is the lock files like package.lock.json and pnpm lock. So why we have lock files? So in this project, we actually have this two that I have said. So imagine the purpose of these files is consistency. If every day or today or somewhere near 6 months later, another developer needs to install the same project without a lock file, they might get slightly different versions. So the lock file ensures everyone gets the same dependency versions. So next, we're gonna go to our Vite configuration. Vite configuration is composed of viteconfig.ts, or also the second one is the Vite config server, which handles the server related functionalities or configurations. So since this is a Vite React project, this file vite config.js or TypeScript, this Vite is the tool responsible for running our development environment and building our application. So you can think of plugins, aliases, or the build behavior. Everything is handled here in this configuration. So next, our TypeScript configuration. We can go to our tsconfig.json. So since this project uses TypeScript, we have a tsconfig.json. So it depicts, usually if you have this kind of file, TypeScript is running in this kind of project. So basically TypeScript is, you can describe TypeScript as strict because this shows what types of files should be included in modules that should be handled. So Tailwind configuration, since we are using Tailwind, we have Tailwind config and post CSS config. So for styling, this project uses Tailwind CSS. So this Tailwind config handles all the configuration, customization, themes, colors, and extension, design settings reusable across all the project. So PostCSS, just think of it just like PostCSS works behind the scenes and process the CSS. As we use the Tailwind, PostCSS is also inline series being used. So public folder. So public folder is the one responsible containing the static files that needs to be processed by React. Okay, so since we use a AI website builder for the basic UI front end, this is the one that is contained here. But you can declare whatever you would like, the static files that you will be using in your own project. So yeah, unlike the other components, these files are directly served. So the client folder, which is up here, now this is the most important part. So this really is the one handling the actual React application. So the client folder is basically everything user interacts with. So inside that, you can see here app.tsx. This is the main landing part when you trigger the React. This contains everything that we have. This is the main container of our application. From here, we connect our pages, our routes, our layouts, and global structure. So the pages directory is the one that handles our pages that are full screen. For example, if you want to go to a new Scrabble game, the screen that will be loading is the new game.tsx. So if you are currently inside the game.tsx is the one being loaded. So if you want to go to settings tsx is the one being loaded. So pages are what the user sees. So the components inside it, that's what makes those pages. So the components folder is, you can see here, app shell, UI, and the Scrabble board. So we go deeper into reusable pieces. So components are the smaller building blocks. So instead of creating everything inside one giant page file, we separate the pieces that can be reused. So all of these components UI are the reusable pieces that we can unlimitedly reuse across the project. So app shell here is basically the main layout wrapper. So this is like the one that contains the navigation, the nav bars, the spacing, the sidebars, the top bars. It depends on how you would like to call it, but yeah, that's app shell. In others, it's like wrapper. In others, it's like the one that you are seeing in the menu or the in the hamburger menus. Scrabble board, the TSX, this is solely exclusive in my project. So basically, I just created this one because it is the board itself. It is separated into its own component. But since there are other pages that will try to reuse the game board itself, we need to extract it. So for example, if you try to play a game itself, you are having a present ongoing game. But when you try to go to your past match history, you will also call the Scrabble board itself. So meaning you are using Scrabble board by not just one page, you are using it into different kinds of pages. So meaning it's useful if we have the ability to compose the Scrabble board into a one reusable component. Okay? So we might eventually add tile placements, highlighting, animations, and AI suggestion. This is the one that controls it. So the UI folder, yeah, this is the smallest reusable blocks that we have, like buttons, dialogues, like carousel, input, the toast, the sidebars. So these are not specific to Scrabble. They are basically the building blocks. So a button doesn't care even if it's used in a starting game or saving settings. It is a folder that is used across. So mostly these folders are we have here are generated using SHADC and UI. So after components, we have hooks. So we have here use mobile and use toast. So instead of repeating the same logic that we have into the multiple components, we extract it into a custom hooks. So you can see here the prefix use dash, like use state, use effect, those are default. But when you want to create your own custom hooks, that's why we add it to those hooks directory. Okay, so for example, detecting the mobile screen, that's the use of this, and managing toast notification is handled here. So the lib folder, which contains game data, utils, or spec. So basically, lib stands for library. This folder contains the helper function or reusable logic across all the programs. For example, the utility function that don't belong to a specific component. Instead of putting it to a random helper functions everywhere, developers usually organize them here. Server folders here. So we have here routes, index, and nodes. Although this is mainly a front-end project, this also contains server folders. This is where back-end related logic can live. And yeah, these routes we have here, this contains our API routes if the need comes in near future. You can also use other API or backend you would want, like Express, but since React has its own basic level, or to a more complex stuff, you can use your own using Express or Django API. It depends on you, but for basic stuff, React has it. Okay, so shared folder. This one contains the code for both front end and back end. Instead of duplicating types and interfaces, we kept them here in one place. So that netlify is not common type of folder, but basically, as you can see here, API, we have our netlify function. This allows us to create serverless back-end logics. So instead of maintaining your own traditional server, Netlify can execute functions when needed. So in ending, after exploring this project, the structure makes more sense to me that, as we can recap, the client, basically this is the React itself, the UI, the components, this is the small reusable building blocks of our project. The pages, here are the full screens of our project. The hooks we have is the helper I mean the reusable custom hooks that we have, the logic itself. Library contains helper function. Server contains the backend logic, as I've said. Okay, shared is the one that is can be accessed by both backend or front end, which is the common code, and public contains the static files. Understanding the folder structure is actually the first step building features, because now when I want to add AI suggestion, game history, multiple player uh, features, I know where those changes should go in the near future. So instead of randomly changing files, I now have the understanding of the map of the application itself. So in the next video, I'll start exploring how the actual React and TypeScript code works inside these folders.